Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Glad to welcome to our telephone microphones State Senator George Borrello. Senator, thank you for coming on.
Good morning, Brian. Good to be here. Thank you.
Well, Senator, everybody talking in Albany, especially the upstate Republicans like yourself, about the green light law. The latest there, from what we understand, is there was an attempt by the Senate Republicans to repeal that. Can you bring us up to speed there?
Yes, in fact, myself and my fellow members of the Republican Conference held a press conference earlier this week, and we introduced an amendment that would repeal the green light law. And this was after we received a briefing thanks to Congressman Tom Reed. He brought in members of Customs and Border Protection. These people are not political people. They are the people on the front lines there that are protecting our border. And they shared with us how the green light law is negatively impacting border protection in New York State. And it's really, people think of this, well, this is about giving driver's licenses to illegal immigrants, which it is. However, the law also reads that information will not be shared with the federal government, including access to the DMV database. And what we heard from these officers that were there presenting to us is that the very first thing that they do when they start any type of investigation, when they stop a vehicle, whatever it might be, is they search the DMV records. And that is now no longer allowed. That information in real time is critical to the safety and security of the officers and to the prosecution of horrific crimes that are occurring on a daily basis in the border area. And that's really what this is about. The fact that New York State had to go beyond every other state that has allowed driver's licenses to be issued to illegal immigrants by blocking access to critically needed DMV data, and that is the difference.
Senator Borrello, did they the federal officials who spoke in, from what I understood, it was ICE and Homeland Security and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Did any of the federal officials stress that a lot of their investigations are big drug investigations? Did any of them mention that?
Absolutely. This is, of course, terrorism is a big part of it, but you're talking about drugs that are going across the border from Canada, a very active, activity, and also human trafficking, drug trafficking, human trafficking, organized crime. You've got so many bad people doing bad things. And having that information is critical, and they did mention all of that. Again, this is certainly, terrorism and is a key part of this, but so much else that law enforcement does to protect that cross-border activity is critically important.
I don't know. Just reading some of the statements coming out of the New York City Democrats, you'd get the impression that. To be on the Trusted Traveler program, which gets you through the TSA lines faster at the airport, that's some sort of basic human right that everyone was born with, especially illegals. Your thoughts on that, Senator?
Well, in fact, the nearly 200,000 New Yorkers that are now immediately impacted by no longer being a part of the Trusted Traveler program, it's a big impact. It's a negative impact on business and commerce. That is the most active border in the world when it comes to cross-border economic activity, and that is being hamstrung by no longer being a part of the Trusted Traveler program in New York. But there are so many things that the New York City Democrats are hypocrites on, and this is one of them. On one hand, we are not going to restrict illegal immigrants, people who are not in this country illegally. We're not going to restrict them from being able to, for themselves, to be able to move in and around New York State, but we are going to, in fact, restrict legal, law-abiding citizens from doing so with this law. And the reality is this. This is not about immigrants. What this is really about, just like the bail reform, this is about New York State trying to win some contest to prove that it's the most progressive state in the nation. The governor, in his State of the State address, said the word progressive 17 times in the first 5 minutes of his speech. I counted it. And this is what this is all about. This is about the governor and the liberal New York City Democrats proving that they are more progressive than any other state, California, New Jersey, whoever. And that's why they have done these things that go far beyond what other states have done without consulting anyone. I mean, the federal government was at the ready. They have an entire division of people that provide technical assistance to states when it comes to things like this. They could have asked for help and avoided this. Now the governor is backpedaling, and because he and the leadership of the Democratic Party in Albany is listening to a small group of radicals and allowing them to drive New York State policy, they can't go backwards, and they know it. So the governor has really put us in this position. It's dangerous. It's foolish, and it is nothing more than a political move that really, in the end, puts New York State in a very bad position. And you can see us spiraling downward with this, with the bail reform laws and other laws that were passed with no public input, with no input from the people on the front lines. And in the end, it has been bad policy that has let it's the tail wagging the dog in New York State.
Talking to State Senator George Borrello. Senator Borrello, new bail and discovery changes. You've objected to those. What's the latest there?
Well, the governor is claiming he's going to offer some kind of a Band-Aid in the budget process. We've yet to see that. We have a lot of people that are outraged by this, and the people of New York are turning against it. Recent Siena College poll that was just done last week shows 60% of New Yorkers think that the bail reform law is bad for New York State. And even people in minority communities are turning sharply against it. So this is because they are the ones most impacted by it. The reality is that these people that are being released, this catch and release process, where people who have committed egregious crimes, burglaries, vehicular manslaughter, all these other things that no longer qualify for bail, these people are going back out into the community and they're reoffending before they're even brought in for their trial on the first offense, multiple times. And where are those people committing those crimes? Well, they're committing them in the communities that they come from, wherever that might be. And that's the problem. So even our minority communities are turning against this because they are being impacted by it. And it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter your economic status. This is bad for all of New York, and New Yorkers are finally starting to wake up to that. And now the governor is once again in a position where he cannot go backwards because of the radicals that he has allowed to run policy in New York State and dictate what's happening to New Yorkers.
Reading from a story from 3 months ago about the green light law, and it talks about undocumented immigrants being able to get their driver's licenses. And again, when the New York City Democrats talk about it, they talk about it as if there's some sort of persecution going on, that ICE is some sort of horrible organization. But, when you look around at other countries and you take a look at what what they do in south of the border, Europe, they have very strict immigration rules. Try to get a visa sometime to go over to Scotland or England or Ireland or any of those countries. The very strict rules on coming over, not for vacations, but if you're going to go over there and get a job, you have to jump through a lot of hoops. And do you have a sense of why the Democrats in New York State are just the opposite of that?
Well, I think to me it's simple. Number one, they're pandering to groups of people that will support them politically, and their objective is to create a permanent, dependent class of people in New York State that will bend to their will, whatever that might be. I am fully convinced of that. That means bringing as many people into this state that are reliant on government and ensuring that they are forever slaves to government. And those people then will have to vote for those in power and will have to be reliant on them for everything. This is the agenda of the ruling class in New York State. Is to solidify their power by ensuring that people are indebted to them forever, and that's why we do these things. It's shameless, and you see it here in Albany all the time. The shameless pandering to special interests is just it's what they do on a daily basis. There's no due diligence. There's no thought involved. There's no let's talk to the experts before we pass a law. I was just speaking at a committee meeting yesterday where they were talking about massive changes to the civil service laws, and when it came to the section where it says what will the financial impact be, the answer was unknown. Well, how do you do this with a $6 billion deficit? How do you put forth something that is likely going to cost the taxpayers of New York tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and have not even done even the most basic analysis of how it will impact costs? And that's the problem. The people that are making these laws, the people in the majority with one-party rule in Albany, have become completely irresponsible. And in the end, it's all about politics. It's all about how things look and sound bites, and not about due diligence.
Talking to State Senator George Borrello. A common page for me to check out in the morning, a page that I often check out for New York State news in the morning is EmpireReportNewYork.com. I have to confess, I don't like the page's slant against the state Senate Republicans, but they do have a lot of interesting news, so for that reason I check it out. They had a story, and I realize it's outside your district, but they had a story on, and it went on the top page yesterday morning and the day before, Panasonic fleeing Buffalo billion plant. And underneath it said, Tesla, mission accomplished. Now, that ties in with another story. Senator O'Mara sent out a statement the other day saying he was objecting to the idea of the governor coming up with a new state agency that was going to decide at the local level where alternative energy projects would go. Wanted to get your thoughts, Senator George Borrello, on the news of Panasonic leaving the Buffalo area in this Buffalo billion plant, and also Tesla, and the idea of the state deciding alternative energy locations for wind and solar.
Yeah, first of all, on that point, this is a complete power grab by the governor. What he's doing is he's saying he's going to take control out of hands of local government. He's going to squash opposition whatsoever. I don't care what your opinion of green energy is, but you should look at this horrific and blatant power grab by the governor and be outraged by it. This is what this is about. The governor is going to set aside environmental concerns. He's going to set aside quality of life issues. He's going to set aside open government and people having input, and going to force down the throats of people in upstate New York all of these horrible green energy projects. And in the end, it will do nothing, nothing to impact greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. That's the worst part about it. This is about the governor trying to look like some kind of bogus climate change hero so he can someday run for president. And again, it goes back to how do we prove that we're the most progressive state in the nation. He's realized now that this ridiculous goal of being 70% renewable in 10 years isn't going to be accomplished unless he blankets all of upstate New York with these projects. And they're willing to, whether it's destroying wildlife, destroying habitats, destroying our drinking water supply and fresh waters. It doesn't matter. Nothing will stand in his way, and those radical, empty-headed environmentalists that support him. This is a political agenda, and everyone needs to look at it like that. They have to understand that no matter what it is that you feel, you should not be relinquishing control to one person to decide where these things will go. That in and of itself is absolutely outrageous, and it is a move an oligarch would make, not someone who's supposed to be elected in a democratic republic. So I am absolutely outraged by that.
The Article 10, which came out, what was that, 10 years ago, I believe, or somewhere close to that. Article 10 was passed, largely by Senate Republicans who supported it. Assemblyman Palmisano, I think Senator Romero supported Article 10. This goes beyond Article 10, though, in that Article 10 at least had some local members of a community who would take part in that committee in Albany to talk about the placement. But I don't even, from what I've seen from what Senator Romero says, I don't think that this new state agency that the governor wants to set up would even do that, would even have local members. What do we know about that?
Well, that's it. And as much as Article 10 really was a punch in the gut to local governments to begin with, at least there were siting boards, and those siting boards were allegedly supposed to have local membership. Although I know, that senators and assembly people have had to fight even to get actual local representation on those siting boards. So even then, the governor was trying to mess with the process. But this new plan by the governor is going to wipe that out, so that there is no local opposition. And he literally says that the local opposition will not be considered, and if any, and local zoning laws will not be considered, and only if a government can demonstrate some kind of a severe negative impact, which is undefined, will even their interests be considered. So this is truly bulldozing his way through local government and home rule, and in the end the will of the people. So yeah, this goes far beyond even Article 10. And Article 10 in and of itself, when I was a county legislator and county executive, was bad to begin with, in my opinion. And this is going to go even further beyond that.
Going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment with State Senator John Borrello here on this Friday 1-hour edition of the Newsmaker Show. Stay with us.
Selecting a nursing home for a loved one isn't easy until you've discovered Hornell Gardens Nursing and Rehabilitation. Hornell Gardens delivers the highest level of care, compassion, and commitment with amenities and activities that will enrich body, mind, and spirit. It's a place that's close to home. Stop in for a tour of Hornell Gardens, located at 434 Monroe Avenue in Hornell, or to learn more, call 585-222-CARE or visit hurlbutcare.com.
Did you know most people struggling with problem gambling addiction started gambling at age 10? March is Problem Gambling Awareness Month. We need to teach young people that gambling can be a risky behavior that can lead to addiction. Talk to young people about making healthy choices to prevent gambling addiction. Find information and help at oasis.ny.gov. That's oasas.ny.gov.
Sponsored by New York State Office of Addiction Services and Supports.
Back with State Senator George Borrello. On the Newsmaker Show, Senator Borrello occupies the seat that Senator Kathy Young used to be in. Wondering, Senator Borrello, are there any allies for the Senate Republicans on the Democrat side these days, or are all of the Senate Democrats pretty much on the same page as the New York City-driven Senate majority?
Well, one-on-one, there are certainly members on the other side that understand what's happening and how this radical New York City-driven agenda is damaging upstate New York, but and Long Island and other areas outside of Manhattan, quite frankly. The problem is that the leadership on the other side is ruthless, and they do not vote against them. So they hold press conferences and talk about how bad bail reform is, and they've introduced, in some cases, introduced amendments, but those amendments don't even get out of committee, and some of it is just show. Some of it is Democrats trying to find cover for themselves because they know that they are going to face the voters in a few months, and the voters are not happy with what's happening. So, and some of them are genuinely understand how bad these things are, but they are squelched by a corrupt system here in Albany. It's a corrupt system that does not allow individuals to bring forth legislation. In county government where I come from, it didn't matter if you were in the minority or the majority. It didn't matter if you were standing alone in some cases. If there was something that was important to you and the people you represented, it would be able to be brought up in committee and discussed and voted on. And even if it failed in committee, that member, that county legislator, would have the right to sign that legislation through, so it would be brought up and discussed and voted on in the full county legislature. That's open government. That's the will of the people being represented. You can still vote no, but at the end of the day, each and every person had to vote on how they felt on that. In state government, those things can't even get out of committee. They don't get to the floor. And on top of that, so much now is hidden in the budget process. We're going to vote on a budget here shortly that in the end is going to have all kinds of policy discussion in it and important changes, like this change to the siting process for renewable energy. That should not be in the budget. Those are policy things. The budget should be about the numbers, and we have a lot of numbers to look at and a lot of big challenges to face. We should not be jamming in all of these policy decisions and casting one single vote on all of these multiple issues. That's the problem. There is no accountability. The system itself is institutionally corrupt, and it needs to be reformed.
Talking to State Senator George Borrello, and he represents Chautauqua County, Cattaraugus County, parts of Livingston County, and all of Allegheny County. Wondering, Senator Borrello, do you get a chance much to get around different parts of the district, locally more in Allegheny or Livingston County?
Oh, absolutely. I was just most recently in Livingston County for an event, a couple events. I'm in Allegheny County on a regular basis, and I do get through the district quite a bit. When I was county executive in Chautauqua County, which in and of itself is a big county, I put about 60,000 miles on my car in a year and a half, and now I'm on the same pace here, a much faster pace, and that's it's important for me to be out there with the people. I'm not only in my district offices in both Jamestown and Olean, but I am out there with the people and talking about their concerns, and that's critically important to me. And every inch of this district is important. And the voices of the people in the district matter to me, and I will continue to do that.
Final question for you, State Senator George Borrello. I see that in any Google search or a number of your press releases or Congressman Tom Reed's press releases that your names come up a lot together and that you work closely with Congressman Tom Reed. Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. Not only as a state senator, but when I was county executive and even as a county legislator, when Tom became our representative in Chautauqua County after redistricting, he has been a champion for our area, and I appreciate all that he does, and I certainly appreciate how hard he works for us, and it's my pleasure to work with him.
Well, with that, we do have to close. We've been talking with State Senator George Borrello. Senator, as always, good having you on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your listeners and look forward to doing it again.